Could the Minnesota Vikings really make a UDFA their QB2? Well, it's not unprecedented. Happened 2 years ago. And it's a real possibility. Kevin O'Connell told us that after the game on Saturday. Look, we're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about why the results of the game are actually more impressive than the score would indicate. And my guy, Elijah Williams, continues to ball out. We're going to talk about all that and more here on the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. My name is Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top left corner is producer Dave. Dave, I am proud to inform you that I had a 12-pack of Busch Lights over the weekend, and it was glorious. I'm still waiting for that sponsorship, but it was a good time. Listen, I was up at my brother's wedding this weekend, and I got to watch the entirety of the game, and I thought it was a really interesting game, and I thought that the Vikings played pretty well, considering. One of the biggest things that stood out to me was they were playing up almost the entire game, and they were relatively holding their own. What I mean by playing up is the first team, Patriots, played against like the second/third team of the Vikings early on. The Patriots got the lead. They were able to hold on to the lead for the entire game. But when it finally got to like threes versus threes, that's when the Vikings started to cook. And that's when the Vikings really started to show a bunch. And I thought that was really, really impressive and great to see on an overall level, where like you had guys like Elijah Williams and Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins playing against the first team offensive line of the Patriots. And guess what? Both guys made a play against Garrett Bradbury and Garrett Bradbury's clone, Jared Wilson, the center from Georgia. So I do think it's really interesting that the first team offensive line did see some struggles against who the Vikings had in the, whatchamacallit, like their second/third team, because Ingram-Dawkins is like D tackle 5 right now. Redmond is D tackle 4. I think he's solidified that position. Him not even dressing for the game on Saturday, I think was just one final nail in that discussion point. But overall, I thought it was a really good game from a lot of people, and I'm still working through the all-22. The defensive side, there's a lot of good in there. I'm very, very excited about it, and there's like a real possibility that this team just keeps 7 defensive linemen and says screw it, because that's where the best players are. So at the end of the day, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do with those guys? And
well, it'll all come down to a numbers game. And if you're wanting to keep like 6 wide receivers, who's wide receiver 5 and 6? TBD.
Mm-hmm.
Could be. So stick a defensive lineman in that slot. Go with what you got.
And with the Addison being out for 3 games, you can just sign someone to the practice squad and elevate him for 3 games, and then you're just fine. That's the nice part about the practice squad is if you think Thayer Thomas is worthy of a roster spot and you'll play him those first 3 weeks, just throw him on the practice squad, because he's not going to be somebody more than likely that ends up going to another team. And I think those are the guys that you want to try and sneak on the practice squad. The ones that play really well, try to keep them on the active roster. And then once everybody has their rosters fully set, then is when you can be like, hey, Elijah Williams, I need you to go to the practice squad. Like, that's when you make those kind of moves, because you can lose players. Now, it is rare. Only like 0.5 or to 1% of all players that are waived on cutdown day end up getting claimed. But if your guy is just performing like crazy, the odds get significantly higher. So that's where some of the intrigue comes into play. And we'll talk about roster math a little more at the end of the show, because I think there's some really interesting angles to talk about. But I don't want to bury the lead. I want to talk about Max Brosmer. And I am guilty of this. Everybody that I've listened to who has been guilty of this, it is not Brosmer. It is Brosmer. So I'm going to do my best to try and get that right. And I guarantee you I'll still mess up a couple times here and there. But it is Brosmer. And I'm making an effort to try and get that rectified. So Brosmer comes into the game, and we find out that he's basically going to play the entire second half, which is like, okay, this is great. Barely got any reps during joint practice, but the few reps he did have, he looked really good. He ended practice on Wednesday with a deep ball to Dante Fleming. And then Thursday's practice had a couple really nice throws, including one to Jayshon Jones on an deep in-breaker from about 20 yards out. And guess what? He duplicated that in the game. And I think the big thing with Brosmer, and I talked about this for a video I did for A to Z Sports, which go subscribe to that YouTube channel as well. Or you can find all of that in the Vikings First and SKOL Discord channel, which is going to be in the show notes, the invite. I recommend you all come out. We already have over 50 people in there talking ball. And as the season gets more in depth, I will be posting a lot more film clips that we can talk about and have a little bit more fun. But I talked about this in one of those videos. Max Brosmer could be the next Brock Purdy. And I don't mean that he's going to get a $250 million contract. I'm talking about the construct, the idea. Brock Purdy was the final pick in the NFL draft, which basically makes him a UDFA. But he's not a UDFA. It's like in politics,
cheaper than some highly prized UDFAs.
Mm-hmm. Actually, well, he's more expensive because there's the guaranteed signing bonus. But with Republicans, they call some of them rhinos, like the Republican in name only. Like the last pick in the draft is basically a draft pick in name only. They're basically a UDFA. It's kind of the same thing. So one of the interesting things with Purdy and Brosmer is they're cut of the same cloth, where they were overlooked throughout the process. They were not prioritized in the NFL draft, but they also went to a team that was absolutely perfect for their skill sets. Purdy, a really good point guard, distributor of the football, and can throw with anticipation over the middle of the field. All things that Kyle Shanahan believes are necessary to run his offense. And he's a system quarterback, but let's also be honest with ourselves. How many quarterbacks, when you really boil it down, can you say are not system quarterbacks? You think, oh, Brett Favre's not a system quarterback. Well, you've never seen it outside of a West Coast offense. So you can't say he's not a system quarterback. Peyton Manning, I think you could probably say it, but he created his own system. So is he a system quarterback? Like, I don't even think it's an insult. Joe Montana's a system quarterback. Tom Brady's not, because he went from running the Earhart-Perkins system to an Air Coryell and was an MVP in both. Like, just a bonkers football player. So the term system quarterback, I say that and use those different descriptions because it's not an insult. It's fine to be a system quarterback as long as you're in that system. And that's where fit comes into play and is so, so, so important. And Brosmer's got a perfect fit here. He's got the smarts for it. He's got the work ethic. You see him after every public training camp practice. He's out there throwing still. He's out there working. And then you have other guys who maybe just didn't go to the right place. Trey Lance obviously didn't go to the right place in San Francisco. His preseason debut, he looked like a completely different human at quarterback. It's like, okay, maybe there's still some hope there because he's only 25. But that's a great example of where fit and development just matters so, so, so much. Where if Brosmer went to, I don't know, say the Denver Broncos, where they're not doing a bunch of that kind of stuff. They're doing more. I might be wrong with this with Peyton, but I think he does some like run and shooty kind of stuff where it's like option routes and it's a lot of short stuff. And then they really try to physically attack the seams. It's not a run and shoot offense, but I kind of get some vibes from it from those standpoints. That's not going to fit what Brosmer does well. Brosmer was one of the best, if not the best quarterback at attacking the middle of the field last year. Third and intermediate, nobody was better in the country than Max Brosmer. What does Kevin O'Connell love to do? Attack the middle of the field. So the fit has been flawless from that point. And because the fit is there, that matters. And I'm really excited to see how that's going to end up manifesting, how that's going to end up working out. I think it's going to end up working really well. I think it's going to be a fascinating one. And I do believe that Brosmer is going to make this roster. But Kevin O'Connell, with his quotes on Saturday, leaving the door open for him to maybe be QB2, Dave, I thought was the most interesting of them all. And I'm going to pull that up here in just a second because I do find that really, really interesting. Let me go back.
You didn't watch 2 Bloggers yesterday, did you?
No, I was... Dave, I'm going to be honest with you. I was massively hungover yesterday, and I spent most of the day traveling. I didn't do a whole lot. So, no, I did not. I did not watch 2 Bloggers. I got to find it.
I got a whole list of Kevin O'Connell quotes on Brosmer.
Well, I had it. I don't know where it went, though. I was looking on the back end. Here we go. Here's the quote. I just view it right now as we've got to learn about these guys. We've got to try and see who's able to go in there and function and execute the offense when the circumstances aren't perfect. They're not throwing the ball to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkins and are playing behind our first offensive line. So you take that into account. But you're looking for just the traits out of those guys. And I think Sam had a really good week of practice, and I think Brett Rippon had a good week stepping in there too. Max Brosmer made some throws that were really impressive as well. So there's a reason why we're playing all 3 of them. As far as what that means in the overall competition, I think I would just say it's still open, and we're trying to figure out what that room is going to look like for the season. But I do like all the players. That tells me that it is a non-zero chance, Dave, that Brosmer is QB2. Now, when I said at the top that there was precedent for this, the Vikings actually got to see it in person. 2 years ago, the Chicago Bears named Tyson Bagent their QB2 as a UDFA out of Division II's Shepherd University. Now, they made the D2, I believe, national championship game against Colorado School of the Mines, and the School of the Mines just whipped them. But a lot of what they did at Shepherd was just RPO bullshit, where you're just doing a bunch of RPOs and you're not really running and operating an NFL offense. He had a big learning curve, but there was some real intrigue there. And if you remember, Tyson Bagent's dad is a world arm wrestling champion like 15 times over. So there is like a strength pedigree in the family. So it wouldn't be unprecedented, but it would be wild. But at the end of the day, your QB2 is going to need to be a couple things. One, they need to be intelligent and they need to be able to like help run the scout team and that kind of stuff. By all accounts, Brosmer has those traits to him and he is really intelligent. Second thing is, if they come in, can they run a stabilized version of your offense and help you just stay afloat? Because this is not 1994. You're not going to have this super experienced quarterback as your backup. And you're not going to be able to keep that guy for 10 years. Like the Houston Oilers, all of you know, big Houston Oilers guy back here, my guy Warren Moon, was hurt a lot. Cody Carlson did not like consistently become the starter until he was in his either 8th or 9th year, 1994. But when he would come in for a few games at a time, he was good enough to keep things stabilized. We remember guys in our time, the second stint of Brad Johnson, Gus Frerotte, Todd Bauman, When those guys came in and they had to start a couple games, they were good enough and they weren't losers. They would have lost some games, but they won some too. And that was the most important part about being a backup quarterback. Now, if you lose your quarterback, you're just kind of screwed. And it just kind of is what it is, unless you have like a young developmental guy behind and that guy just takes off. Like the Philadelphia Eagles, when Carson Wentz went kerplunko, well, they, for lack of a better term, lucked into Jalen Hurts. They didn't luck into him because they took him as like, hey, we think this guy could be good and we don't have to pressure him to be a starter right away. Well, he just kind of won them the Super Bowl. So you're not going to always have that. You're not going to be able to always have a Tony Romo waiting in the wings, which the Dallas Cowboys got to have. And then they lucked into another one with 4th round pick Dak Prescott. Those don't happen that often. But if you have a developmental guy back there, you may have a little bit more of a risk when it comes to trying to win football games now, but you build yourself a high upside, low cost quarterback too. And if Brosmer goes out and just plays really, really well, guess what? It rips. It looks to be a really good bet for him in the Vikings. And I don't think he'll be quarterback 2. I think at worst he's going to be quarterback 3. I would be floored if they cut him, because I think Brosmer's performance, it makes it more likely that he gets claimed or signed by somebody else. Whereas Brett Rippon, you can probably just slide him to the practice squad and it's nobody's the wiser. So I'm looking at that from a perspective of the Vikings really do love this guy. And I think that's a really important thing. It's going to be really interesting to see how this last preseason game shapes up, because if Brosmer has another good game, buddy, like there's just no way you can cut this guy. And I think that's going to be a really, really cool find.
Oh, I think he's already made the team. Question is, does he make QB2?
No, I don't think he does. But
now,
the fact that it's a question tells you everything you need to know about where Brosmer is right now.
Oh, the conventional wisdom is you want the steady, grizzled vet that can go in there and game manage and do the things you want him to and maybe win 50% of the games. That's conventional theory. But if you have somebody that gets praised by the head coach for, quote, what I love about Max is there's some breakdowns. If there's breakdowns up front, and maybe he couldn't progress through the read concepts, but he plays with very fast eyes and very rarely puts the ball in harm's way when he's doing it, which is a unique trait. Mm-hmm. He's high on the fact, Kevin O'Connell's high on the fact that Brosmer can process and can see things even when things are breaking down. And you got to remember, Brosmer's playing with the 3s and the 4s. So things are going to break down. We don't have studs across the offensive line. We don't have studs at wide receiver and at that level. We don't have studs at running back at that level. So things are going to break down. You talked about the throw to Jeshwan Jones. He's done it twice. And like you said, it's just things like that to show consistency is when he's getting reps, he is, per Kevin O'Connell. And the fact that he is showing consistency in doing it is a great thing and a head coach looks for. From the standpoint of fundamentals and techniques, his abilities generate some pretty good revolution in RPMs on the ball with pretty limited movement in the pocket. Mm-hmm. That's Kevin O'Connell talking about Brosmer. So he's got good technique throwing the ball. From a standpoint of high football IQ, I think it shows up and he can really arrive here. Spend a couple hours in meetings, and he's out there making corrections in the middle of 7-on-7 walkthroughs. This is an undrafted rookie, and he's making corrections. That is something amazing. I think he will probably earn the QB2, especially if Sam Howell goes out and has another bad week. And he's only had one good week, and that was last week and the Texans game, that was it. Before that,
joint practices were good. They were good.
That's what I'm saying. Last week, joint practices with the Patriots and the Texans game. That was it. The game against the Patriots, he was miserable. Absolutely miserable. So if you've got somebody that you see has all these skills that fits what you want to do as a head coach, you keep him. Now, my question yesterday on 2 Bloggers is, how many games do you think he would win if he's going in with the ones?
I don't know. I think there's still too many unknowns about Brosmer, but I think with how brilliant Kevin O'Connell is at being able to maximize things for his quarterbacks, and this is where that fit continues to come into play. I think with Brosmer, there's a real chance that they could win 8 or 9 games with Max Brosmer. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't be because Brosmer is this great player. I've said it consistently. If JJ McCarthy is just an average quarterback, you can win 10, 11, 12 games with this team because of what you're going to ask him to do, what everything is going to be required of the team as a whole. And I think if you just put Brosmer in that spot, he's not going to be as good as McCarthy. He's not going to be as experienced just from a mental standpoint in the National Football League as McCarthy. But I do think he's got the tool set and intelligence that O'Connell can work with. And over the course of the season, you will see improvement. So I think you could win 8 or 9 games with Max Brosmer. And I wouldn't be super shocked. I also wouldn't be super shocked if they just won like 6. But this roster is so talented. Brosmer's just going to have to be a threat to throw down the field. If you can establish yourself as a threat to throw it down the field, that's going to make everything pop. That's going to take everything to a different level. And I think that's a really important factor that we just don't necessarily think about. If there's no threat, they can just focus on stopping something else. So that's going to be a big deal for this Vikings team.
Now, Robbie says he thinks Howell can win 8 or 9, asking the same question with this squad.
Yeah, I think so.
And where would you put Rippon?
Probably around the same. I think O'Connell could lead this team to 8 or 9 wins with any NFL caliber quarterback. NFL caliber does not mean starting caliber. So I think that's a big thing. I'm really intrigued to kind of see how his quarterback battle shapes out, but I don't think it's going to be a simplistic answer. I think Max will probably just end up being QB3, but it wouldn't shock me if all of a sudden he just becomes QB2 at some point in the season because he's just doing a good job. He's just doing a good job.
There's also comments about how, from KOC, how he and JJ McCarthy are paired up and they're driving each other. It's a real good match. And I think that's plays into it as well.
Yeah, I think that is a good point. I think they've done a really good job of crafting this quarterback room. Howell is the prototypical backup quarterback. He's got a good arm. He's mobile. He's got that Aaron Rodgers in him where he can just eat up 15 yards on the ground if you give him a pathway. But there are real flaws to his game. There's a reason why he's not a starter anymore. Because he's a very slow processor. He takes a lot of sacks because of that slow processing ability. And that's going to limit his ceiling. But he's also a gamer. Got kind of that Baker Mayfield where he just knows how to play. Remember that game when Mayfield was the Rams in 2022, I think it was? And Mayfield had been with the Rams for like 5 days and led a game-winning drive on Thursday Night Football. Like, some guys just have that in them. And I think Sam Howell is one of those guys. He just has it in him. And I think that that's going to be a really interesting thing when trying to break this all down. Because, look, Kevin O'Connell's right. We're judging all these guys like they're running the first team. But so much of it is different. And when you look at a guy like Kyle Sloter, where Sloter had these great preseason games, but when you kind of watch it and you watch what he's doing, how much of it is just backyard football and how much of it is he's actually running the play to perfection. And I think that's why Slaughter just never ended up making it. So I'm really intrigued to see how this quarterback battle shapes up. I think Rippon is on the practice squad. I think Brosmer's 3. I think Howell's 2. And I don't think that's a super controversial opinion. But the fact that O'Connell left the door open for Brosmer to be QB2. O'Connell talks like a politician, and that's not a bad thing. He talks
Most
like
coaches do.
Yeah, he's in PR. That's what he does. That's what all coaches do. They're going to give you enough to keep you like it's like somebody just keeping you on a leash. They're going to give you enough slack, but they're not going to give you everything. And I think O'Connell does a really good job of that. Now, that's also frustrating sometimes, but he wouldn't leave the door open for Brosmer to potentially be QB2 if that wasn't possible. That's a big thing. Well, Norris, why would Zimmer hate Slaughter? Ask yourself that question.
Because Zimmer hates all quarterbacks not named Teddy Bridgewater.
Well, that's also not true either. He liked Sam Bradford. He hated Kirk Cousins.
All right, there's exceptions, but he's prejudiced against quarterbacks.
I wouldn't even say that. He knows what he wants, and he doesn't want it to impact his defense. And I think he's stubborn, but it'll be the whole point of this conversation is just going to be really interesting to see what happens with this team. And I'm fascinated because we still have one more preseason game. It's against the Titans, and the Titans actually had a fight today in camp where Cam Ward pushed Jeffrey Simmons in the back and then taunted in front of him because he completed a long pass. Dog, you can't fight with Jeffrey Simmons. That dude could kill you. If you're on the football field, you don't get in a fight with somebody who's 100 pounds bigger than you and could literally kill you with his bare hands. That's just dumb. I don't care if you're wearing a red no contact jersey. You start a fight, Simmons ain't gonna get in extra trouble. Things are weird in Titans land, let's put it that way. But there's one area, Dave, where things are not weird. And that is with our friends at Underdog Fantasy. We are back to a new season, and there's a ton of opportunities to have fun. The Best Ball Mania tournament is continuing to go on, and you can enter that. Plus, there is a new promo to be offered. All you have to do is play just $5 and get $50 in bonus funds when you sign up with the promo code Forno. That's it. Pretty easy stuff. And there will be the option to get the promo that you see on the screen back at some point. But for the beginning of the season, $5 and you get $50 in bonus funds when you sign up with the promo code Forno. And there's going to be a lot of fun opportunities, including your Minnesota Vikings this upcoming Friday night. I'm going to be looking at some of those Max Brosmer lines because I think there's a way to maximize it. Him, Thayer Thomas, maybe some Xavier Scott. There's going to be some interesting ones. And remember, you got to be in one of those states that you see on the screen. And then just remember, this is all about fun. So if you're having a little too much, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Dave. One thing that's really interesting to me, I want to talk about roster math because we did last week a 53-man roster projection. We're going to do a 53-man roster prediction, and I'll have some kind of roster prediction after the show. Maybe it's on the YouTube channel and the podcast feed. Maybe it's just on the podcast feed. We need to figure out the logistics, but I'll have something for you in some format talking about my prediction, because there's a difference between projection and prediction. So roster math is an interesting thing because you have to have a certain amount of players at each position. But at some positions, if you have 9 offensive linemen, or 8 offensive linemen, or 10 offensive linemen, you can make justifications for all 3 numbers. You could do the same with cornerback. Oh, do I need 5? Do I need 6? Linebacker, like, do I need to carry a fifth one? Probably not. Running back, like, well, we've got 2 and a fullback. I can have one on the practice squad and we're okay, kind of thing. So roster math itself is a fascinating conundrum. And every year it changes based on a couple of things, based on the needs of the team, based on what kind of offense the team is or defense the team is running, and also based on the talent that you have on your 90-man roster. And this is where things get really interesting. Take a guy like Elijah Williams. I highlighted him when they signed him because I'm like, okay, there's something about this guy. I hadn't had a chance to get his college all-22. I still haven't. But we've seen him flash in practice. We've seen him flash big time in 2 games. And he wasn't just a signing. He was a signing out of mandatory rookie minicamp. So when you're an invitee to rookie minicamp, that's a big deal when you make the roster because you have nothing going for you. Absolutely nothing. You have to earn it over guys who already have it. So you have to stand out that much more. What does he do? He stands out that much more, Dave. And I thought it was really impressive the fact that he's been able to kind of make this kind of jump. What was interesting about him is 33 sacks, 52 tackles for loss at Morgan State. Now, if you don't know Morgan State, it is an HBCU, a historically black college or university at the FCS level, which means he's 3 tiers below the NFL. So when you look at that kind of production, it's like, okay, why didn't this guy transfer to a higher level? And if he had opportunities, why did he choose to stay? And 2, how much of that production is going to translate? Because how are you supposed to just guess that? That's so hard to predict. And I think what we've really seen here is Williams's production was legit. And he's doing stuff against everybody in front of him. And I want to see him. Obviously, it won't happen in front of fans, but I hope he starts getting a couple reps here and there with the ones when they do full team. Reason being, when you play that well against 3s, what NFL teams will often do is they will play you a couple snaps against the ones. They did it with Dwight McGlothern last year. His first play, he got a PBU. They want to see how you handle it. They want to see how you handle when you fail, because the most likely scenario is that you fail right away because you're going up against just these real big ass kickers who are just significantly better than anybody you've ever faced. But then if you hold your own, then that opens eyes as well. It's like, oh, okay, we have something here. We have something in this dude. How are we going to maximize what we've got? And I think that is a really intriguing thing as well. How are you going to make this work? How are you going to make things better? And Williams, I think, has done such a great job, which is why the roster math question is a big factor here. With roster math, how do you not keep this guy on the roster? And if you do keep this guy on the roster, are you really going to cut like a Levi Drake Rodriguez or a Tyrion Ingram Dawkins to keep him? The answer is probably no. The best case scenario might be that Levi Drake Rodriguez's ankle injury is severe enough to warrant putting on injured reserve, so you keep Elijah Williams on the roster for a few weeks. And then if you have to move him down to the practice squad, you can do so being at significantly less risk of losing him. And this is where roster math becomes really interesting, because at a certain point, like those last 3 roster spots, it does not matter. It does not matter one bit.
You know what matters?
What?
Keeping politics out of the chat.
Yeah. I know I reference politics, but if I reference it, it's more of a metaphoric standpoint. Like, people have used like rhinos for Republican in name only for years and years and years, and it's just to describe somebody. Like, I'm not going to tell you what my views are, so please
there are
keep them out
people here that believe both sides of the argument. One is right, one is not. But we don't need to bring it here on Vikings First and SKOL.
But Dave, that's not right. It's not correct. One is right, one is left.
Well, yes, I stand corrected. And
Yeah,
but
this is just a no politics zone, no hateful zone.
this is about Minnesota Vikings and everything related to the Minnesota Vikings. No need to fire up your fellow fan.
Yeah. And let's get back to roster math. I think with Williams, he's so good that like those last 3 spots, you can have just 5 wide receivers. You can have just 5 corners. I think they'll have 6 corners, but that's not the point. You find ways to get guys on the roster because they earned it. Like a few years ago, they kept like 6 or 7 wide receivers because those guys just earned it. Last year, they kept Jalen Redmond and Taki Taimani because those dudes just earned it. And I think Taki Taimani does not end up sticking around just because I think he's just been overshadowed. But I do find it really interesting that you could have 7 off your defensive linemen here because they're all just playing that well. And Williams is making that case. I think that is a big factor here that when it comes to roster math, you need to figure it out. You need to try and figure out how you're going to make that happen. And I'm really excited, Dave. I'm really excited to see what Williams does in game 3. I think he's going to make an impact. And if he makes an impact for a 3rd straight game, this is Jalen Redmond all over again. Like, that's what this is. And
Jalen Redmond secured himself a spot on the roster by evidence that he was held out and didn't play this weekend.
Yeah, he has already secured his spot on the roster, which is wild. Wild to think about.
Can Elijah Williams do the same? Hey, I loved watching him on both games, seeing him disrupt, and he absolutely does. And he's a big dude. We're used to seeing Danielle Hunter in 99, and he looks like an edge rusher.
Mm-hmm.
Elijah Williams does not look like an edge rusher. He looks like a defensive tackle.
So, fun fact about Elijah Williams, couple facts. One, I spoke with his agent. His agent informed me he's like 294. The 270 weight was like his pre-senior season weight, and he doesn't understand why people have been using that. That he weighed 284 and 288 at the HBCU combine and then his pro day. So, yeah, you don't need to be using 270. He doesn't look 270. He looks like he's about 294. 2, came to Morgan State, Dave, as an edge rusher. Now, I bring that up because he looks like he has plus movement skills for a guy his size. Those plus movement skills matter, especially when you kick inside, because like guys who think of Kevin Durant. Guys who are 6'11" shouldn't be that great of a shooter, right? Well, Kevin Durant grew up as a point guard. Then all of a sudden he became 6'11". You don't just automatically lose that ability when you get bigger. When you're an edge rusher and you go inside, you won't have the same movement skills because you'll have a different body type and you'll have more weight on you. But you're still going to have a little bit more fleet of foot movement skills. That matters. And I think he's got a really good profile. He looks really good. The one thing that really impresses me is the hands and how he's able to place them well and keep guys from really digging in and getting underneath him and stacking him. No, he's able to keep offensive linemen at bay, get around them or through them. And he needs to work on some things. Like he had a pass rush that ended up being a first down on a third and short because he's running right at the quarterback, doesn't put his arms up. Like, you got to put your arms up, buddy. And I think they'll end up coaching that into him. So I'm not really that concerned from a long-term perspective. But I think it's really, really interesting from looking at it that way. And Dave, I'm really excited about Elijah Williams. I'd be floored if he ends up going elsewhere. This is a really good football player.
Well, the problem is we've got some very good defensive linemen and only so many spots to give them. And that's why we're talking about the roster construction math.
Yep. Jonathan Harris has been solid. He had a good game against the Patriots. Travis Bell has also been solid. There's just dudes on this line. There's dudes. And that rocks. That's a good thing.
Now, I have a question for you. We've discussed Brosmer and we discussed Williams. Were there any more other standouts that you watched this weekend during the game?
I think we got to talk about Miles Price. He may have solidified the return job. It's a really interesting one because they drafted Ty Felton. In my opinion, no sourcing, no reporting or anything. I think they drafted him specifically to be a redshirt guy and to be a future guy, and he'd be a special teamer right away. I think that was the idea with him, where he could step into a wide receiver 3 role next year after a year redshirting with Keenan McCardell, working on a lot of things, and he could be a return guy right away, be a gunner, do all those sorts of things. So having a guy that's already going to be on the roster handle your return duties does make a difference when it comes to roster math. And my wife loves to talk about girl math. And girl math might be the one thing I dislike more than anything on the planet. Oh, I returned all those items, so everything I buy then is free. No, you already paid for the original items. That's not free. But with roster math, if you can prevent spending an entire roster spot, because you only get 53 on a guy who's just going to be a returner, that's a smart bet. It's a smart thing to do. So if Ty Felton's not the returner, which he is the number 1 kick returner on this team right now, according to the unofficial depth chart. Yes, that's confusing. Yes, it's stupid, but they got to do it. I do find that really interesting. I find that fascinating. But I will say about Price. He returned a punt for about 20 yards and able to make the first guy miss. He returned a kick for like 81. And he had another good return too. So he's 31, Dalton. Price may have just gotten himself a roster spot because of that.
Hey, I'm for it. Hey, if you can return kicks and punts and do it well, oh, heck yes, that's worth a roster spot. Not that we get Brandon Powell that fair catch, 0 return.
Mm-hmm.
Ty Felton could be a good kickoff return guy, and there's going to be 2 guys back there, so put him back there. Just Ty, hold on to the football. You're a wide receiver. You're supposed to do that in the first place. Please. Is it too much to ask? Broski
yes.
Bear, it's good to see you, buddy. You're getting all full of yourself and the Bears after that win last night.
Yeah, and that win's not going to mean anything. It's the preseason. Bears fans are already celebrating like it's the Super Bowl. Calm down. I don't really have a lot of other huge standouts because I'm still working through the all 22. I was getting ready. Price or Thomas. I'd probably keep Price because of the special teams upside, and I don't think Thayer Thomas is a good special teamer. But that's just me. So I'm going to continue to work through the all 22, kind of see. I thought Jashaun Jones had a couple of really good ones. Lucky Jackson has had a few drops, which is weird because I don't think that he's had a drop problem before this. So why does he have one now? And I think the coaching staff will be able to figure that out better than I can. Fun fact, everybody talks about the 2 Vikings male cheerleaders. I used to serve Blaze Sheik at Applebee's. I'm 99% sure because I know his mom. Because she used to come in all the time as a regular. So there's your fun fact of the day. I'm only 99.9%, but I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I think Price is a really interesting one when it comes to the roster math aspect, but that returnability was plus. It was really good. We'll end on this because we still have to preview the game we'll preview the game later this week. But it may be stray from the original time. Just a heads up. I'll have to talk to Dave because I will be at the State Fair all day on Thursday. Now, we might still do it Thursday, but Dave and I will have a conversation, then we will communicate that to you.
Stop by the Score North tent.
Yeah. I'm sure I will.
Say hi. See what you're missing.
You're funny, Dave. You are funny. Freddie asked who I would sign as a wide receiver. I don't know if I would sign anybody. I really don't think you need to make a panic move at wide receiver. You can get through the first 3 games. Now, if Naylor's hand injury is a big deal, we don't know what it is. Right now, it's just kind of being described as a jammed hand. That's like, if it's just a jammed hand and he's going to come back in by week 1, I'm not worried about it. If you're out Naylor and Addison, if Naylor's going to be out a significant period of time, I'd consider it, but I don't want to make a panic move just for 3 games. I really don't.
Now, I see the Ghost of Judah Tribe is in the house and Broski Bear is in the house. Since you guys are Bears fans, which you're more than welcome to come here and talk whatever you wish to talk. That's no problem. Join us on Wednesdays for Who Will Be King. This week is being hosted over on the Detroit side on Bleachers to Speakers. And then make sure you're shown. And then the following week, we'll be back over here on Vikings First and SKOL. But you're more than welcome. Just be polite.
Yes,
sorry
absolutely.
to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. Yeah, a lot to kind of look forward to here over the course of the next week. We'll have a show from me at some point this weekend, just doing my 53 roster prediction. I know Two Old Bloggers on Sunday is going to have something similar, so keep an eye out for that. Thursday, the timing might change. We might move the show. We might just keep it same day. Then just move the time. I got to talk to the wife and then get back to Dave. And then next week, we'll have a show Monday. And then Dave, we may have to do a show right when the rosters come out and break it down. So plan on that. We'll communicate the time as that comes. Easiest way to do so is to 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel. 2, join the Vikings First and SKOL Discord server in the show notes. And 3, if you are a member of the YouTube channel, you get access to bonus channels in the Discord. One of which is the Rumor Mill channel, where I will share all the juicy gossip that I hear across the league. The other one is an Ask Me Anything, and you can ask me whatever question you want, and I'll answer it. We may expand those channels as we continue to grow the Discord, but for now, those are the 2 extra that you get with your membership. And that's always a good thing. And it links, so I don't have to set you up. Once you join, you link it up and boom, easy peasy lemon squeezy. But that is our show. Thank you guys all so much for joining. We're going to have a lot of content over the next few weeks. And with that, I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching the Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone.